Omaha.
All right.
You let us know when you're ready on tax item.
Stand by. All right, we should be. We're good. We're good, thank you.
Okay, welcome to the first meeting of the Indiana Illinois Boundary Adjustment Commission. First order on the agenda is the call to order and recognition of quorum. I see all 6 members who are appointed are here. And that gives us quorum. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. We have quorum and we can start. And the second item is commission member introductions. So would you like to start down there and just say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Clay Andrews. I'm from Warren County, Indiana, where I'm county commissioner and Republican Party chair, but my day job is 6th generation corn and soybean farmer. I've been married 10 years and I have 2 kids, 8, 5, and 2 years old. And yep, happy to be here about today.
My name is Mark Seid. I'm from Posey County, semi-retired farmer. I don't believe there is a retired farmer. Semi-retired, but I seem to be doing more now than I did when I was a farmer. But anyway, my wife is Cheryl. I've been married 47 years. Have 2 children, girls, one in Nebraska and one real close to us. Thank you for letting us see.
Good morning. My name is Greg Newman. I'm from Posey County. I'm currently a Posey County Commissioner as well as the Posey County Republican Chairman. In my day job, I'm a CPA with a regional accounting firm, a partner there, focusing mostly on business taxation. And I do have 3 children, 2 of which reside in Posey County and 1 is in Hamilton County. And I'm looking forward to serving on the committee.
I'm Ray McCammon. I'm from Sullivan County. I'm a former county commissioner. Spent 20 years serving Sullivan County. My wife Trudy and I have 5 kids and 10 grandkids. And I'm a retired operating engineer. I farmed for 20 years. The dinner bucket was a little easier to make it. Thank you.
I don't know about the dinner bucket, but I work a similar situation on the farm. My name's Don Leahy. I'm from Brookston, a little bit north of Lafayette, White County. Lifetime farmer. Took 2 or 3 years off after college several years ago. I won't get into that, but to teach school, taught vocational agriculture, and then I went back to the farm and have been there with my wife and family ever since. Took some time, I have served on a school board for several years ago, and most recently was in the Indiana legislature and in the state house, and have enjoyed learning about the process and looking forward to working with this commission and see if we can help out Illinois. Thank you.
I'm Jeff Papa. My day job is I'm Chief of Staff and General Counsel for the State Senate in Indiana. I have 2 daughters who are students at Ball State, and I was previously the council president and then mayor of Zionsville, Indiana, and then on school board. And I also have an interest in welfare of Illinois. My grandparents had a farm in western Illinois, and I spent a lot of time there growing up near Little York, Illinois. So a very interesting topic for me, and looking forward to talking to everyone about it who has an interest. Okay, so we've introduced the commission members. The next item is the statute calls for us to elect a chair and any other officers we see fit to elect. So, and just by way of explanation, the reason I've been organizing everything, I didn't want you guys to think I just jumped out and took that. The governor's office asked me to serve as acting chair until we could organize, just so somebody would be keeping track of everything and organizing it. So I'm happy to continue doing that. If somebody else is interested in doing it, that's fine too, but this is a point where we need to nominate somebody to do that and then decide, do we want a vice chair, do we want a secretary, those kinds of things. But the statute requires us to pick a chair. So Anybody have thoughts?
I got one thought. I'm fine with nominating Jeff. If there's anyone else that wants to jump in there, that's fine too.
Second.
Okay, sorry, that's awkward for me. Is anyone else interested in serving in that role? If not, no? Okay, if not,
Move to close the nominations.
okay, all right. So all in favor of nominating me, all in favor of me serving as chair, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Should we have a vice chair? Is there an opinion of the commission? Seems like a decent idea in case I become unavailable for some reason. That's not exactly true because we're going to get into that, but the statute says we can meet and take testimony and we just can't make a final decision. So it specifically says we can, if somebody had been absent today, we could still talk about things. We just couldn't have elected a chair as an official action. So is there somebody interested in serving as vice chair?
If we need a vice chair, I'd be willing to serve.
Okay. Is there a second for Mr. Newman?
Yeah, I'll second that. I'll make the motion if need be.
Okay. Anybody else interested or have a nomination?
Move to close.
Thank you.
Second.
So all in favor of Mr. Newman serving as vice chair of the commission, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, vice chair. Do we have an opinion on, for now, DNR, who's appointed staff by the governor's office to staff us, is going to take meeting minutes for this meeting. Are we interested in having a member of the commission serve as secretary, or do we want to, for now, stick with DNR working on the minutes? Anybody have an opinion? Sorry, Maddie. Okay, so we can, if opinions change as we move towards the next meeting, we need to add another officer or something, we can do that. But for now, we've met the statute's requirement in terms of electing officers. So then I'll just continue in that role, as we said. So the next thing on the agenda is to review the enabling statutes. So I think everybody has a copy of it. You had it earlier in an email. And we just kind of wanted to go through the pertinent stuff so we know what we're supposed to be doing, what we're supposed to do and what we're not allowed to do. The first thing I'd highlighted there is section 4 on page 1. Someone asked earlier, did Illinois send anybody? As far as I know, Illinois hasn't taken that up. They haven't appointed their members. They're allowed to have 5 members appointed under Illinois law. They haven't done that yet. They can do that if they choose at any time. But for now, it's just the 6 members appointed from Indiana. And I think it wasn't a disrespect to not give them equal numbers. I think the question was, how do you have a quorum if Illinois chooses not to participate initially? So that idea was, I think, was just that, hey, let's allow the group to meet and get organized, and we can continue to invite Illinois to participate if they'd like to. But we need to be able to have a quorum to have those discussions. So at the moment, there's only 6 of us. By statute, no more than 4 can be members of the same political party. And then, of course, the 5 from Illinois. So we'll see if they decide to pick somebody later. And on page 2, commission at its first meeting shall elect the commission chair and any other officers. We just did that. And then we're charged with meeting at least once each calendar year, but we can meet more frequently at the call of the chair or if any 6 members asked to meet. So be thinking about that. The last thing on the agenda for later is set the next meeting date. So we'd like to talk about, do we want to try to meet again this year? How often do we want to meet? Is it every quarter? Is it, what would we like to do? So think about that for later in the meeting. And then we're going to hear a little bit, hopefully from DNR, about this part, but the statute says each member of the commission who's not a state employee is entitled to receive per diem mileage and travel allowance in a certain manner. And then there's a separate provision for those who are state employees. I think that only applies to me, but I might be wrong. We'll hear from DNR about that. And then again, a quorum of the commission is 6 members, but this is the important point. Quorum is necessary for us to take official action, but you do not have to have a quorum for the committee to meet, take testimony, and hold discussion. So at the next meeting, if one of us is missing, we could still hear from the public or hear from Illinois or something like that if we need to. We just couldn't vote on anything. Then on page 3, governor shall designate an agency to serve as staff. That's DNR. They're here. They helped arrange all this for us. And by the way, thank you to ISU and President Goddard and Rex and everybody else who worked on this. We really appreciate the room. It seems really nice and really functional for what we're doing. Okay, so here's the meat. The commission shall discuss and recommend whether it's advisable to adjust the boundary between the state of Indiana and the state of Illinois. That's our discussion. And then not later than 60 days after we complete our duties, we have to submit a written report to the General Assembly, electronic format, and that should include a summary of what we've done and any recommendations we have. And then, of course, just to make it clear, any recommendation we make can't take effect unless it's approved by the General Assembly of Indiana, the legislature of the state of Illinois, and the Congress of the United States. So this is, we're coming up with ideas and thoughts, and then those would just be recommendations to the state of Illinois, state of Indiana, and potentially to Congress. Does anybody have any questions about the statute? Okay. Maddie, does somebody from DNR want to tell us about reimbursements, expenses?
Hello, everybody. I am Maddie Connor. I'm the Chief of Staff at DNR. So for convenience, I'll be sending you guys an email later. That email will have 3 documents in it. It's going to have a supplier IRS W-9 form for you to fill out, a supplier direct deposit authorization, and a travel voucher form. So for any in-state travel, you'll fill out that attached travel voucher for payment and reimbursement from DNR. And then once that you fill that out, you'll just email it back to me, and then I will get it to the appropriate individual on our staff to get it processed. So per diem, though, can only be reimbursed or paid when there's an overnight stay. So no overnight stay means no per diem, but we'll reimburse mileage and such. For the department to process these forms, you'll submit that attached W-9 and the DDA form to get registered as the state supplier. We'll get those to the comptroller to take care of all that. If you're a current state employee or past state employee, just let me know when you email that documentation to make sure that the ID number that they supply you with is not conflicting with a past number or a current number. They will probably go back and use an old one if you're a state employee, or your current one if you are currently a state employee. Documentation requirements might be a bit different if there is any out-of-state travel, which I don't think any of us plan on doing. But if we do get to that point, depending on transportation, distance, et cetera, there will be some additional paperwork and approval, but we can go through that if we get to that point and decide that's needed. So if you guys have follow-up questions once you get those documents or have any questions filling them out, just please let me know, and then we will get all that taken care of.
So for them, it would be mileage? And
Yes.
then what about if they paid the parking garage?
Yes, that should be reimbursable.
Okay. Are there any questions for Ms. Connor?
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you.
guys.
Okay, we're moving along pretty fast. So the next thing was we have 4 people who are going to testify remotely, and I think I mentioned the commission, not normally a big fan of remote testimony, but we are dealing with another state, and several of these people live pretty far away. And we've asked, they're not going to be talking for an hour or two, so to come that far just to give us initial thoughts on some things was probably not worth a 4 or 6 hour round trip for them. So we agreed to allow 4 of them to testify today. I just want to mention, I don't know any of the 4. These were picked because they seem to be 4 active people on this discussion who've spoken on it publicly and have some thoughts, and so we just thought that maybe they might be interesting to hear from. One of them asked to distribute the link to the website where he'd done some research. I think everybody received that. If you hadn't, let me know. We'll get it to you. Otherwise, we'll just let them introduce themselves and hear what it is they have to offer. Are any of those 4 people currently with us? It's a little earlier than the time I thought we might get to them. Mr. Scott Carpenter or...
Yes, I'm available.
This is Eric Ivers. I'm on.
Okay. But Mr. Carpenter, I think you had asked if you could lead off, if you're the first person I talked to, if you'd like to do that. I think we hope to be at about 10 minutes, but that's not a definite hard stop. We just know you had a lot to share, and we could have some questions at the end if you like. We do have about 2 hours with the room, so we can't go super long, but we really would like to hear what you have to say. So if you'd like to start off, Mr. Carpenter, that'd be great. And then we'll go to Mr. Ivers. Sorry, Ives.
Well, I would like to screen share. Are you able to see the screen share now?
We can. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm a Hoosier living in Indiana, and I'm a member of a group of volunteers called Downstate Illinois Secession. Our group is devoted to convincing Illinois to relocate its state lines to allow southern and central Illinois to be governed by Indiana or by Kentucky or by Missouri. And I support moving the state line because it pushes Illinois law 200 miles farther away from most of our counties. Illinois laws like immigration, sanctuary laws, marijuana, and abortion centers. I think that's worth a lot. Also, it gives us the satisfaction of freeing good people in Illinois from bad Illinois law and from bad Illinois regulations and governance. And we're talking about a lot of people, so I think that's could be worth something to us. It also gains Indiana an electoral vote in presidential elections for every 770,000 residents that we annex, and it takes one from Illinois, which the majority of Hoosiers would think is a good thing. It gives Indiana more power and in the federal government. And if Indiana annexes Western Illinois, it also helps Indiana's majority party in the U.S. House of Representatives by eliminating a ridiculously gerrymandered blue district in Western Illinois there, at least one. Now, if this commission decides that border relocation is a good idea, then I believe that proposing which group of counties to annex should be considered one of the tasks of your commission. We did an analysis in 2018 that shows the benefits to Indiana and Illinois of various groups of counties joining Indiana. And the analysis tabulates how that would affect election results and state budgets in each state. We don't think that Indiana would want to annex northern Illinois counties, which could destabilize the Republican majority that Indiana has and change our governance entirely. 80% of Illinoisans live in northern Illinois. So we believe the largest group of counties that Indiana might want to annex is a group of 74 counties, which had 2.8 million people in 2018, and that's shown on this screen share here. And it includes all of southern and central Illinois up to the Illinois River just short of Peoria and Bourbonnais. This area had 1.7 Trump voters per Hillary voter in 2016, when Indiana had 1.5 Trump voters per Hillary voter. Now, southern Illinois is even more Republican. It's 2.5 Trump votes per Hillary vote. Now, it may be that Indiana would choose not to annex all 74 counties in order to protect the state budget. So we identified various groups of counties that have a higher average income per person than Indiana has. So this is shown here. One possible group of counties is the eastern half of central Illinois, which has a population of 1.1 million people. It already has a higher average income than Indiana has. So if it joined Indiana, it would make our whole state's average income $59 per person higher than it is now. And just based on income and sales taxes, we could expect Indiana to collect about $4 more per Hoosier. Oh, that's just income taxes. And I don't mean $4 per 1 million people here. I mean $4 for the whole 8 million people, which admittedly is still not much money, but at least it's not a drain, it's a benefit. And another option, instead of being so selective about which counties to annex, we could design legislation that would create a tax mechanism to force the whole group of counties to pay their share of our state's taxes. But maybe that isn't necessary because I agree with Speaker Houston that all of these counties' income would improve if they weren't held back by Illinois regulation and tax rates. More people would be willing to live there because Illinois has been losing residents for quite a while, and more so than almost any other state. I've heard some corporations pulled out of Bloomington, Illinois since the analysis because of these regulations and taxes. The Illinois Basin contains huge amounts of shale oil and natural gas that is barely tapped in Illinois, but is being drilled and fracked in neighboring states such as Indiana. Now, this shows the gas production, and as you can see, the eastern half of the Illinois basin in Indiana is being well taken advantage of, but the western half is hardly any economic activity. So now switching back to shale, I read that several developers have given up trying to obtain permits from Illinois. The New Albany shale development alone could support tens of thousands of high-paying jobs. And one reason Illinois may eventually want to get rid of these counties is that Illinois' budget is based on high income tax rates. So these counties are a big drain on Illinois' budget, but would not be a big drain on Indiana's state budget because Indiana's tax structure is different, more relying on other taxes. And Illinois state officials should be glad to eliminate the risk of another Republican becoming governor like Bronner did. Now, some might argue that this whole commission, the Border Adjustment Commission, is a waste of time because the government of Illinois would not agree to let these counties go. But it might not be long before a debt crisis could suddenly force the government of Illinois to need a massive influx of money. It has the lowest bond rating of any state. And moving the state line could be the only solution that can provide that influx of money, because even if Indiana isn't willing to pay anything for these counties, still it makes sense for these counties to bring part of Illinois' debt with them, because if you divide the Indiana state debt by the number of Hoosiers, you get a certain amount of debt per Hoosier. If Illinois counties took that amount of debt per person into Indiana, then annexation wouldn't change the debt per Hoosier, but it would cause a sudden influx of money for Northern Illinois government when they're trying to pay, pay off a bond by a certain deadline. It should buy them, if we annex that much, 74 counties, that would give them a couple years of breathing room to get their finances in order. So a debt crisis hits in a matter of days and it requires a quick solution. So we should be doing the thought ahead of time, how Indiana can take advantage of such an opportunity. And your commission is an opportunity to sound out and settle on a politically expedient solution that can be pre-packaged and presented to the public in such a time of crisis. And so part of that package would be thinking ahead of time which counties should Indiana annex, how much money should be exchanging hands, how the debt will be handled. And you can think through whether you want the counties to hold impromptu elections again to affirm that they want to join Indiana specifically, and whether they agree to the financial terms of the proposed deal. I'd be interested to know if you think Indiana would be willing to pay to acquire counties for the benefits that I mentioned above, moving Illinois law away from our counties and stuff. Also, I'd like to hear whether this board thinks that Indiana should take counties that wouldn't quite pull their weight under current circumstances. Another topic could be if there's a way to quantify how much should we assume that these counties would revive under Indiana law and Indiana taxes and give us more courage to take on poorer areas. And I'd be interested to know whether the state government of Indiana is willing to update my fiscal analysis using more recent financial data, because this one's 8 years old. I don't know if I would have time to myself to do it, but on another topic of polling, as far as polling on the whole idea of moving the state line, our Facebook poll of Hoosiers got 1,200 votes, and the poll showed, got 1,200 votes and showed 82% were in favor. And then there's the other poll of a Facebook poll of 2,700 Illinoisans found 90% support for joining Indiana. Now, the group I'm in, Downstate Illinois Secession, is not the only group in Illinois that's interested in splitting the state. some of the reasons that Illinoisans have focused on creating a new state rather than relocating the state line is that when the movement started, people didn't know that relocating state lines is an option. And many of their leaders and volunteers live in northern Illinois, which wouldn't be annexed by a neighboring state anyway. So it leaves out many members of their movement. Just to let you know about the political environment, Republican politicians in downstate Illinois get much of their campaign money from upstate Republicans. And especially because the collar counties around Chicago were very wealthy. But another reason is they didn't know whether a neighboring state would be willing to take their counties. So this commission can help answer that question by making a recommendation in your report in favor of relocating the state line. Now, so far there's been 83 elections. I mean, there's been 33 counties representing 842,000 residents in favor of creating a new state. And the election results have averaged 74% in favor. And more counties will vote and would have voted, except the Illinois separation campaign's momentum got stopped when its Facebook groups were deleted in 2021. And our group of 3,500 members, too, was also deleted. We were supporting that campaign. And I personally wrote the 40-page report that was emailed to you. So I hope you'll dig into it. I'd be happy to come back and talk at length about any particular topics in it. I consider myself an expert on the topic, and I'm not happy to take any questions that you might have about the topic in general.
Questions from the commission members?
Thanks for your testimony. Appreciate you taking the time. Is there much of a history on this proposal or ideas going back several years, or is this more recently, or do you have a feel for that?
Well, state lines have been moved. It's not well known, and journalists have been slow to learn about this, but there's actually more than 24 times state lines have been relocated. It's done by an interstate compact, according to U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. And usually, well, actually always, as far as I know, it's always been done with small pieces of land that are not populated, but except when two counties were, well, twice. One in 1863, there were one county was switched from Virginia to West Virginia, and then a few months later, another county was moved from Virginia to West Virginia. And also, there's cases like a couple decades ago between South Carolina and North Carolina, they clarified and where the border was. So 14 people ended up being moved from one state to the other just because they weren't really redefining where, they weren't moving the line, they were just surveying it better and establishing that in law. So there is precedent, you know, like Congress has approved dozens of state line relocations. It's just, this would be, if we annex more than two counties, it would be the biggest one in history. But legally, it's a proven process.
Other questions? Mr. Carpenter, did I read in your materials that you felt there may be a case where the remainder of Illinois, the counties leaving Illinois, and the state of Indiana, were those three entities to agree, all could be better off financially? Was that one of your theses?
Well, yes, there's a benefit to northern Illinois because the counties are not as high income as northern Illinois. So because they focus so much on income tax, it's obviously a financial benefit to them. And then for southern and central Illinois, the advantage is the lower taxes and the lower regulations, so their economy can heal. And, with being governed by Hoosiers, they would see people moving in rather than moving out. Now, for Hoosiers, it depends on how much you think the Illinois counties will improve that we annex, and also how selective we are about the which counties we annex.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission?
Ray McCammon, Sullivan County. I wonder, have you done any thought process or study on education and school funding? Because a lot of Illinois schools have not upgraded and consolidated.
No, I haven't thought about that.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Really appreciate it. Your work was very detailed that you shared with us, so thank you very much.
Glad to help. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Mr. Ivers. Would you like to explain who you are and share your thoughts with us?
Sure. Scott is the detail guy. He gave you the statistics. I'm a political guy. 25 years ago, I was chairman of the Greene County Board in Illinois. Last year, I was on the Jersey County Board in Illinois. And 4 years ago, while I was on the Jersey County Board, I pushed the idea of moving state lines, in this case, Missouri, so that downstate counties would be able to get out from under the thumb of Chicago. Since then, we have had, as Scott mentioned, we've had several referenda that show that almost all of the rest of the state of Illinois would like to be out from under Chicago. If you look at a red state, blue state map, particularly if you look at it by township, you'll find that virtually all of Illinois outside of the Chicago metro area and the places where the larger universities are located is completely Republican dominated. So the idea has been, before I really got involved in it, the idea was everybody wanted to make a new state. I looked at it and said, that's not really politically viable. It's not going to be allowed. There's no way that the Senate is going to allow a new Republican state and 2 new Republican senators. So that was a non-starter. But to move it to a different state without changing the makeup of the Senate and without really changing the makeup of the House, because the same Illinois districts, if they were in Indiana, would elect the same Republican legislators. So it would change almost nothing in terms of the congressional makeup. So what we're looking at is, per your question earlier, would everybody be better off if it happened? As Scott mentioned, we are essentially a drain on the Chicago area of Illinois, and they remind us of that regularly. They spend more money here than we send them. That again is not what's going to happen if we move to another state, specifically Indiana in this case. The change in the state governance would allow Southern Illinois to become much more productive, because we would no longer have to deal with the limitations placed on us by Chicago. And as to schools, our schools probably spend an awful lot more money per student than most Indiana schools do. I think my local one spends around 12 or 13,000 bucks per student per year. And that's all from, well, not all, but basically that's from Illinois property tax. Given the Indiana setup, we would almost certainly improve the schools in Illinois, which would improve education, which would improve the possibility of people moving into greater Indiana in this case. So the advantage to everybody really is Chicago area would no longer be involved in supporting downstate Illinois. They could keep their money where they want it. Indiana would have a much bigger state to govern with a lot more income. The income is equivalent, not exactly the same, but the income is equivalent between downstate Illinois and Indiana. So we would end up with a powerhouse of a state instead of just another Midwest state if Indiana were to pick up this portion of Illinois. I came on here mostly to answer questions as opposed to give a speech. So if you have any questions, I'd be tickled to address them. I've been involved in the ballot initiative in about, I guess, 5 counties around here, not because I took it upon myself, but because they asked me to come talk to them to explain what was going on and what could go on. So I have a fair amount of political knowledge and a reasonable amount of technical knowledge about what happens at the state levels and at the congressional level. Oh, by the way, I've also lived in Indiana. So I spent about 2 years in Florida, Indiana. So I'm very familiar with the way Indiana operates.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the commission members? And you said you live closer to Missouri, is that right?
Yeah, we're basically right on the borderline of Missouri. If you draw a line straight north from St. Louis, the Mississippi River bends right around there, and we are virtually straight north of St. Louis on the Illinois side.
So is it, kind of getting ahead of myself here, but so is that, you mentioned specifically Indiana, but this is an Indiana-Illinois meeting, so is that something you might see as a possibility, or would it be more like people in your area would be like Missouri or nothing?
I don't think it'd be Missouri or nothing. People in downstate Illinois are desperate to get away from Chicago. Indiana's a great state. We know that. Missouri's a good state. We know that. We would be happy to have the ability to move to either one. Iowa wouldn't be bad, but it's a little too far north for us. Kentucky is a possibility, but originally I said Missouri because we're right next to them. Once the Indiana legislature, well, the Indiana government overall decided to look hard at annexing some of Illinois counties, I looked harder at Indiana, and it's at least as good an option for us and probably better than Missouri would be.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question or a comment for Mr. Ivers?
Well, I would ask, again, thanks for your testimony and taking the time. And when I look at those maps, I wonder, and I'm sure this has been discussed, that thinking of the configuration of counties moving whichever state they would move to, I assume there'd be an effort to try to make it some type of logical design of which counties go where. So it would be impossible to have counties scattered. So has that been an issue, or has that been discussed, that there would be some kind of cohesive group?
I'm sorry. There'll be a bit of an issue, of course, because there are some very few outstate Illinois counties that are Democrat strongholds, and I'm sure they'd like to stay with Chicago. And the negotiations that would have to happen in order to make it a contiguous state without little spots here and there that don't belong, that would take a fair amount of work to figure that out. If we were to go to various states, from the Illinois counties go to the states that they're closest to, it would be a little less problem, but basically those counties are surrounded by counties that would like to get out of the dominion of Chicago. So yes, your question's a very good one. I think I said earlier, the university locations, the counties that have the good-sized universities in them, most of those where University of Illinois is, where Illinois State is, where Southern Illinois University is, most of those have voted Democrat so far. I suspect that they could be talked into the idea that they'd be better off outside of Chicago market, but it would take an effort to do that.
This is Scott Carpenter. I don't know, is it acceptable to answer a question when I'm no longer on the floor?
Well, go ahead this time, since we've asked the question, but just as once.
Okay, just briefly, the interstate compact does not, the legal process does not actually require consent from the counties. It's just a compact between two states approved by Congress. So if one county objects, it doesn't actually affect the legal process. So it's not even necessary to have any election in the area, but politically people would feel better about it. But still, the election, the referendum on whether Southern and Central Illinois wants to join Indiana could be done as a plebiscite. A plebiscite is a single election for a whole area. It's not done county by county. So in a plebiscite, it would just be a question of, does this whole region agree or not? And so any blue spots that are stuck in the middle of red Illinois would be irrelevant, because on average, counties are voting 74% in favor.
Scott, I don't
the interjection.
want to argue the point with you, but I do want to point out that those counties will have some influence on whether the Illinois legislature would be willing to accept this kind of a move. So they still need to be modified one way or another politically.
Well, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Because I appreciate, to answer your question, I appreciate you if you're not actually, that you hang around in case we do have questions for you. And I know, like in Indiana, when I think of the time zones has been an issue over the years here. And the policy there is, I know in Indiana, if you're contiguous to a county that's in a particular time zone, that county can decide to go to that time zone. Now, I'm just thinking of that in regards to these counties switching states. Was that discussed, that there would have to be some kind of guidance on if you are next, like if you're right next to Indiana, you can vote or decide to move to Indiana, and then and extending that on in thinking of the time situation that we had. Any contiguous county to that county then would be able to switch. Has that been discussed, any type of format or design of who decides?
It's been discussed a little bit in that there is a reason for where the lines are drawn, and it would be awfully hard to draw it around all of Southern Illinois. But in the past, when I lived in Indiana, part of the time I was on Central Time, part of the time I was on Daylight Savings Time. Well, actually it got Daylight Savings Time and not Daylight Savings Time. So part of the time I was on the same thing. In Northern Indiana, if I remember right, they're on Central Time, Northwestern Indiana. So having two separate time zones, I don't see it as being a major problem.
Well, my question was mainly not necessarily about the time issue, but that using that format to decide which counties would go to another state was kind of my question. The time zone isn't the issue here. I was just thinking of using that format to decide who may or may not want to or could be able to switch.
Again, the problem with that would be that you would have a county that didn't want to switch, surrounded by counties that did switch, and that would have to be addressed some way or other. As Scott pointed out, if Chicago area decides, and that is the state overall, but that's controlled by the Chicago area, if the state decides to have a plebiscite where this entire area votes, then the counties that are designated as the blue counties, Democrat counties, would just automatically be part of that change. And they would have no choice no matter. The political problem with that, of course, is that they have a fair amount of swing with the legislature and would need to be brought around. You could pretty much leapfrog all around the entire state by having counties that are contiguous. One joins and another contiguous join and just go around all the ones that don't want to join, but there aren't very many of those. I think there's like maybe 5 counties in Illinois outside Chicago Metro that didn't vote Republican this last time. And this is not a Republican Democrat issue, but it gets down to something similar to that.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate your input.
Thank you for having me. And if at some point I can be of more value to you, feel free to contact me again. But as I said, Scott will give you all the detail that you need. If you want to discuss the political side of it, I do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Do we have G.H. Merritt up?
Good morning.
Hello. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to tell the panel a little bit about yourself and then whatever you wanted to share about your
Sure.
efforts there?
And thank you for inviting me to attend here. My name is G.H. Merritt. I'm the chairman of the board of New Illinois. And I speak on behalf of residents in many Illinois counties who would like to separate from Illinois and form a new state. Our new state movement is large. I see you have another couple of people on here that have been talking about it. The two main groups are Illinois Separation Referendum, directed by Lorette Newland, which is responsible for the 33 Illinois counties voting to separate. New Illinois, on the other hand, operates through committees, mostly in different counties. There's not a lot of overlap between the counties that have had the referendum and the counties that have committees, but there are approximately 100, there's 102 counties in Illinois, and approximately 70 of them have a state split movement going on. Our biggest grievance is that we're not represented. We don't have government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Our governor accuses us of wanting to kick Chicago out of Illinois. That is not so. We want to kick ourselves out of Illinois. We do very much appreciate that Indiana sees us and empathizes with our experience. We wish our own state government would do the same. Instead, Governor Pritzker calls Indiana's efforts a stunt. And last month, he suggested if we don't like the way things are run in Illinois, we can leave. If he really cared about the people outside of Chicago, he would listen and understand our grievances. We agree with Speaker Houston. Illinois outside of Cook County has much more in common with Indiana. Like Indiana, we believe in fiscal discipline and limited taxes. We admire how Indiana has managed its finances and has a $2 billion surplus while we drown in $200 billion of pension debt. Your Constitution limits property taxes. In contrast, Illinois has the second highest property taxes in the country. Our goal is the constitutional formation of a new state separate from the state of Illinois under Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution. The Guarantee Clause of the United States Constitution requires that states provide a Republican form of government. That means government of the people, meaningful representative government. The colonial battle cry, no taxation without representation, is our reality. We have lost representation because Cook County politicians have gerrymandered it away. Both Common Cause and the Princeton Gerrymandering Project have given Illinois a grade of F. A University of Illinois at Chicago report finds that Illinois is the nation's third most corrupt state, and Chicago is the most corrupt city in the country. Lack of representative government has brought this corruption, and it's destroying our state. We're being put at risk by the irresponsibility and incompetence of Chicago and Illinois' leaders. That's the reason for our goal of forming a new state. Nevertheless, we thank the leadership in Indiana for recognizing our pain. Now, I know Eric and Scott were talking before I joined here, and so I don't have any idea what they said. And I think that Lorette Newland will be here also, so I don't presume to speak for her. But it did sound like Eric was talking about the collar counties voting blue, and so they should stay with Chicago. Well, I'm in the collar counties. New Illinois was founded in the collar counties. We have committees in all of the collar counties. And Illinois, if you've seen our congressional map, you know how absurdly gerrymandered Illinois is. Well, the gerrymandering up in the collar counties is much worse than in the rest of the state. So we don't have representative government. There may be townships in the collar counties that would prefer to stay with Chicago, but by and large, there's still a lot of rural areas there. It is a rural versus urban divide. So, I think Lorette would tell you, as I will tell you, that our goal is to form a new state, not join another state. Now, the reason I was very surprised when I got a call from Speaker Houston's office, I had seen what was going on in Oregon and how they are trying to move the state line to become Greater Idaho. The difference between Oregon and Illinois is that Oregon has a moderate amount of debt in their state, so that wouldn't really be an issue. But when you have 200 billion, well, actually, the latest figures I've seen is that it's about over $300 billion in debt in Illinois. And if you were to take a segment of the state of Illinois and absorb it into your state, you would be responsible for a proportional amount of that debt. Every single state surrounding Illinois is in much better financial health than we are. And so we have never expected any surrounding state to be interested in taking a piece of the state because it could be a financially not an advisable move. And from what I've heard, Missouri already said they aren't interested. And so I was very surprised when I got a call from Speaker Houston's office. The gentleman's first question to me was, why do you want to do this? And my reply to him is, why do you want to do this? And because of the reason that I told you, that the debt would be just make this prohibitively expensive. And so what he told me is that Indiana knew this was never going to happen because Governor Pritzker would never appoint the Illinois commissioners to this group. He told me that Indiana's motive for doing this was to send a message to Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson to correct course. He said that Northwestern Indiana's economy is entwined with that of Chicago, and Chicago's on the path to being the next Detroit. The city itself is $1 billion short on its budget this year. Their schools are $1 billion short. Their rapid transit is $1 billion short almost. And what they're trying to do is push a tax through on the rest of the state that every Amazon purchase or DoorDash purchase has a $1.50 fee on it so that the whole state can pay for Chicago's transportation. So while I totally understand what Speaker Houston's office, what their aims were, and we, again, appreciate your interest in us, but one reason we would not support you taking the 33 counties downstate that voted to split is because our county committees go all the way up to the Wisconsin state line. And sometimes people from downstate get the idea that everything above I-80 is Chicago, and it's not. And were those 33 counties to be absorbed into Indiana, that would undermine our efforts to accomplish what we're trying to do, which is escape from old Illinois and Chicago. And so, anyway, any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions from commission members?
Again, thank you for being here to testify. So you would, and sometimes I don't get all the words. These hearing aids don't always work perfect. So you oppose individual counties. You strongly support more creating a new state. Do I understand that correctly?
That is correct. We've been working on this for 7.5 years. And again, I don't understand why you want a slice of that $300 billion debt pie coming to Indiana. Yeah, I think that taking conservative states from Southern Illinois to be part of Indiana would undermine the effort in the rest of the state. We are talking about not 33 counties, we're talking about 70 counties so far that want to split from old Illinois and Chicago. And unless Indiana is willing to take every county except for Cook County, we wouldn't be in favor of it because you'd be putting us in a position where our only option to get away would be to move. And when you have a family farm that's been in the family for 100 years, you can't pick that up and take it with you.
Did you testify at the Indiana Legislature committee meeting?
In February, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I did as well as one of my colleagues.
Did everyone that's testifying today, did they all testify at the Indiana hearing? Do you know?
That guy Scott was there, and Eric Ivers was not there. So it was me, my colleague Dan Jeffenbrook, who's an attorney from Barrington, which is in the Collier counties, and then that gentleman Scott, who I think he's from Indiana.
Okay, so you testified similarly to what you're testifying today. I mean, that was your testimony then also, correct?
Yeah, actually, what I read to you is mostly what I testified that day, except for the part about what the speaker's representative told me over the phone about the true reason behind this. And I suppose, too, this is a great opportunity to publicize Indiana as a great place to live and do business, because it is. And the contrast is stark. The way you run things and the way Illinois runs things.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about the conversation with the Speaker's office, but I do know when the bill was introduced, it was different, and I think the numbers were equal. And that changed as it went through the process because, as you mentioned, it became clear that Illinois at the time was saying, we're not going to send anybody, and therefore the committee can't do its work. So the bill was
Right.
changed to allow the committee to meet and actually seriously, understand if any version of this would be a good idea or not. And your question about which counties, I mean, I think we weren't given any specific charge, so I think the idea would be open to the concept of taking all the counties or not doing it all or anything in between. And then I had one question for you. So if your 70 or so counties were to leave and form a new state, your plan would be to take your share of the debt with you?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so,
Because, oh, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
What I was going to say, like, for instance, the pension debt just alone is about $150 billion. And in Illinois, I won't go into all the gory details, but not only have they kicked the can down the road and never addressed the issue, but they've done things to make it worse over the years. So Illinois is heading toward a financial cliff. And so, gosh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Yeah, we have known that we would treat this debt ethically. We also know that there's a plan out there that it could be dealt with over the course of 5 years and become stable and sustainable. Yet our state government has no interest in that. Unfortunately, I've got nothing against unions, but in Illinois, it is the most union-friendly state, and the unions have such a seat at the table, and the people don't. And so it's a very corrupt system. And so we believe, we're not afraid to take on our share of the debt because we know we have economic advisors from outside of our organization that are of a national stature. And they have told us that this can be taken on, our share of the debt can be taken on and dealt with, and it's not a matter for concern.
Okay, so I would just wanted to draw a parallel there just to say that that's not, I think you were saying, so there's no way Indiana would want to take counties because of, they wouldn't want to take on that debt issue. I just want to draw, in Indiana, there are many parallels to this on a smaller scale. For example, in Boone County, we got rid of some townships and we absorbed them into a town, and they had outstanding debt for fire service and some other things. And so when that happens, the debt comes with the population area that incurred it separately from the area that they're joining. So I think if everybody, I'm not trying to argue, I'm just saying like that wouldn't be a barrier, because if you're already planning to take that debt with you, if you were to come in Indiana, I think there would be a way to say, okay, that debt needs to be paid off by the new counties from Illinois themselves over time, and then once it's gone, everybody's equal. But until it's paid off, you know, that's a burden you had because you incurred it as being part of Illinois. So I think there's a way to handle that if there would be an openness to the jointer rather than the independent state. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just saying that particular issue, I think could be handled this basically the same way you're talking about. You take the debt with the counties that leave Illinois, and it stays with them discreetly, whether you're a new state or you're part of Missouri or part of Indiana or part of Kentucky or whatever it might be.
The only thing is though, and I'm not an accountant, so the debt we're talking about was incurred by the state of Illinois, not the counties. In fact, a lot of the counties have been driven into a bad financial state because of the state's unfunded mandates. And so, so I think it's a little more complicated than that. But anyway, yeah, our bottom line is that we wouldn't be in favor of this unless it included 101 counties.
Okay. The other question, we appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Do we have other questions from the commissioners? Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate you being here and sharing your story again with us. Do we have Laurette Newland online?
Yes.
Okay. Is she just on the phone?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll just have audio from Laurette then. Laurette, do you want to, or Ms. Newland, you want to share a little bit about yourself and what you've been working on? Newland, are you there? Just a minute to see if she. See if I can send her a message. Okay. I think she's saying she can't hear us. While we're trying to, okay, she's calling back. While we're doing that, is there anybody here from the public that wanted to speak? We can come back to that after we talk to Laura, but I just didn't know if, was there anybody interested in speaking here in the room? Okay, doesn't look like it. I'll ask Ian after we talk to Laura, but she said she's calling back. Do you ever coming back in? Maybe while we're waiting on that, do you all have thoughts about our next meeting? How soon we should do that? Statute says we have to do it at least once a year. It seems like, to me, maybe we need to do a little more than once a year. We won't get much done. We'll start with, is there a thought, should we meet again this year, or are there too many conflicts with holidays and so on, get through the end of this year? That's what I'm...
I think it would be tough.
Okay, so maybe shoot for early next year, and we can send a poll around to see what works for everybody, since we need it everybody.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. When
Okay.
I tried to turn up my volume, bad things happened.
Okay, well, we can hear you now, so if you'd like to
Okay, good.
tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been working on, we would appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for including me in your hearing this time. My name is Lorette Newland, and I live near Newton in Jasper County, and I work in Crawford, across the river from you. All my family moved out of Illinois, mostly to Indiana, and I love visiting Indiana and considered moving there before inheriting the farm. And like GH says, you can't move a farm. I am speaking on behalf of Illinois separation referendum. To clarify, we are more than a referendum, but that is our starting point. We were previously known as Illinois separation, and I may use ISR today because it is shorter. Early in our movement's history, our founder became acquainted with a group that was talking about dividing Illinois into different states, particularly Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri. I got involved with ISR, well, the Illinois separation as it was called back then, in February 2019. The two groups shared each other's posts and were friendly and helpful to each other. In fact, our first map maker was from their group. At one of our petition signing rallies, a state rep was asked about the possibility of joining another state. He replied without hesitation, "No other state would want us because of the debt." That was June 30th, 2019. And I just want to say thank you for thinking that you might want us. I have compared our efforts to the children's story, Horton Hears a Who, in which tiny people are shouting with all their might, "We're here, we're here, we're here." Because of the way our state legislature operates and votes, it is as if the people outside of Cook County don't exist. We were told that our referendum doesn't do anything because it is non-binding. Well, our first county boards passed the referendum March 17th, 2020 with a 75.6% average approval, and that got some media attention, and we started having our voices heard. 20 more counties followed in November, and it got still more media attention. enough attention that our governor became aware of us and belittled us in his State of the State address. In January 2021, our Facebook page and our founders page was removed, resulting in over 30,000 followers thinking we had given up. After trying several comebacks, our founder did give up in May, and suddenly I was faced with taking the baton and carrying the torch. I want to skip those difficult first years to 2024, when Madison County citizens worked to get the county board to put it on the rest of the ballots of the whole county. In April 2024, Fox News from Chicago, or from St. Louis, came over to cover the referendum testimony, discussion, and vote, amplifying our Whoville voices enough that more counties were encouraged to keep working on it. And people started realizing we hadn't quit. Getting those 7 counties on the ballot last November got national and international attention, and our Whoville voices were amplified again. That media coverage got your attention, and I want to say thank you for understanding that our ballots were shouting, "We're here," and understanding what those approval votes mean, something that our governor does not. Your House bill certainly stirred up publicity and interest, and since then there has been increased hopefulness. Today, as back in 2019, Illinois Separation has members with different perspectives. One group would be happy to join their neighboring state. Another group only wants to pursue separate statehood. The third group doesn't care which, just as long as Cook County is not in it. And our area that passed the referendum, as you know, is far more southern than the New Illinois group, although they have some communities down south. And we are starting to inch northward. So we kind of started in different geographical areas. Okay, so our referendum only asks about separation and statehood, and it has to be that way per the Illinois Election Code. The other group that I mentioned at the beginning considered doing its own referendum, but did not because they didn't want to cause confusion. Unfortunately, confusion is also something that House Bill 1008 created. The media is the culprit for that in most cases, but people aren't good about reading and comprehending either. As a result, many people are now thinking that our referendum is about joining Indiana. So we have to make it really clear when doing petition signings and board meetings, especially near your border. Here are my observations and concerns. Regarding moving the boundary lines based on the Illinois separation referendum election results, we are seeing the comment, but that is not what we voted for, and seeing it quite a bit. They are not wrong. It is incorrect to assume that everyone who voted yes for the ISR would be equally happy to join Indiana or any other state. Secondly, the Declaration of Independence says that government derives its just powers by the consent of the governed. We can't know the consent of the governed without a separate referendum that states moving the boundaries to become part of Indiana. One board this year, and he was excited and supportive of joining Indiana, by the way. One board member this year was considering doing a second referendum asking about joining Indiana, but decided against it on his own, believing that it would be confusing to voters to have both questions on the same ballot. On the other hand, it might still be confusing to have the Indiana question on a different year, but we don't need to cross that bridge yet. Because at this point, it's premature to put any referendum about Indiana on the ballot until the commission has finished its investigation. I would think it should be done, though, before asking Illinois legislators to vote on the boundary adjustment. If Indiana decides they do want these 33 counties, then a different referendum should be put on the ballot to learn if you have the consent of the governed to try to move forward. 3, however, as the one directing and coordinating the ISR, I have to think about the people in the counties who haven't had the opportunity to vote. Will those counties be left behind? What about the counties that will get to vote in 2026 or 2028? Additionally, if, like GH said, if the 33 counties are taken, what would happen to the movement? Some of your legislators also expressed wanting to pick and choose. If the basis of your offer is the election outcome, then it should be all of them or none. If only the prosperous counties of the 33 are taken, that would devastate separate statehood for the remaining. We have been told that our map is leverage. It is peer pressure. If those left behind lose the momentum gained by the 33 counties, would they have the heart to start over with a blank map? Just this week, I heard from one of my presenters that her board wants the ISR on their ballot, but had not wanted to be the first to put it on. Again, with Gallatin County board member who considered putting both referendum questions on the ballot, but did not want to cause confusion. Another contact in Gallatin who is helping with hers and 2 other counties said the people she has talked to would like to try separate statehood first, and if that doesn't work, then join another state. I have also heard that from others. So at this point, I mostly have questions. There are other questions and issues that our people are expressing, but those can wait. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Do we have questions or comments from commission members?
Yeah, hi. My name's Clay Andrews. I grew up on the state line in Warren County, right next to Vermillion, Illinois, where I own ground in Vermillion, Illinois, and Warren, Indiana. And so, looking at the map, it basically goes from Iroquois all the way down to Pope County in southern Illinois. So I'm wondering why Vermillion, Illinois, if you can give an explanation as to why they haven't voted or put it on a ballot.
I sure can. I was at the board meeting where we presented it and they voted, and the county board voted against it. There is currently a petitioning effort underway in Vermillion County, and I have been there 3 times myself trying to help them. I want them very much to be on the ballot in 2026, but it is a very large county. So if you have people that you know there that would be willing to help, I would be glad to have their help.
Yeah, you mentioned you can't move the farm, and I have 2 friends that have moved their families from Vermillion, Illinois, into Warren County, Indiana, and commute to the farm every day. So one of them, anyway, I can get a hold of the Republican Party chair there, but other than that, really, I'm not very involved in there.
Oh, I see.
Other questions or comments? No? Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. That's some very good information, very interesting. Some good points that all the speakers made. And I think that's our last remote testifier for today. So thank you, everyone who was online joining us there. Appreciate your input. Go back again to, is there anyone in the room that wanted to speak? I don't think there was, but I wanted to ask one more time. No? Okay. So then we're back to set the next meeting date. And I think we addressed that. We're going to maybe send around a question about meeting early next year, but not try to meet through the holidays this year. Is that the will of the group?
Yeah, that's fine. Do we need, usually a report has to be made, do we need to make a report?
The statute says when we're done with all of our business, we have to submit a report. And I think that seems a little vague because our terms are for 4 years and to be reappointed. And so I'm not sure when we determine, I think it's just whenever we determine we've got something to submit to the state, then we would submit a report. Unless you know something different, Maddie, but sorry, Ms. Connor. No, I think it's when we're ready to submit a report, that's when we need to submit a report. There's no deadline in the statute. Okay. So I guess we'll shoot for early next year and just find a day that works for everybody. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to say before we adjourn the meeting? Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Mr. Stive.
Mark Seib. I appreciate the opportunity to have those people speak today. I think it gives us a little bit more understanding of what Illinois is doing and going from there. So, and that's something that I don't have resources in to hear what a lot of people in Illinois feel and understand, and we've heard a little bit of that today. So, thank you for letting that testimony be brought forth today.
I too appreciate the testimony that we heard this morning. Mr. Carpenter mentioned that the financial analysis that he had. Just wondering if we have any resources or ability to get more up-to-date information on that?
I think we'll have to check on that. I'm not sure DNR is equipped to do that, but we may be able to get some arm of the state government to look at that for us if we're serious about investigating that. I think that's a good idea because we can't base what we want to suggest on really old data. So, yeah, that's my thought too. Maybe we can investigate if there's a arm of the state government that might help us out there.
Yeah, and that gets to what was going to be my question was, get LSA involved at our next meeting maybe, and they would, and with a request maybe for that information, but also to be there to help with suggestions on the process as far as getting, now we may not be that far along by then, but LSA would, I'm suggesting maybe we would have LSA involved with personnel that are familiar with the topic, and I'm not sure who drew up the House bill, that person might be helpful.
I agree that it's a natural for LSA that they would have the expertise to do that. The technical issue to start with is this isn't a legislative committee. This is a committee created and put under the executive branch, and that's why DNR is staffing it. So for us to get permission to use LSA or them to even have permission to work with us, we'd probably have to ask the Leg Council or Legislative Personnel Committee or somebody to ask LSA to help us. But we can do that if that's, I mean, we can make that request. So that makes sense to me, yeah. What other thoughts? Anything else for the good of the commission before we sign off, since we won't be back for a couple months? You look like you're thinking.
It's safe to say the state of Illinois will not be assisting us in any way, correct?
That's the indication they've given currently. I think we'd welcome them if they want to send their 5 people or provide any input at all. And again, I want to reiterate too, there's nothing in the statute and nothing that I've been told that we have a particular outcome that's desired or a particular thing to aim for. And I think we want to be really respectful of the counties or the people in Illinois who are interested in this, because this is not, I think I heard the term annexation a few times. This would not be an annexation. This would be an agreement between equals, both the people who would like to leave Illinois, the remaining state of Illinois, and ourselves. It's got to work for everybody, or it's not a taking. It's going to be a benefit for everybody. So, not that I know of, they're not participating other than individuals from Illinois, and I thought that's why it was important to have the testimony, even though it was remote, because we wanted, as you said, we wanted to hear what people in Illinois are thinking about it, not just make a bunch of decisions our end and try to tell them how it's going to be, because that won't work. Okay, anything else? Miss anything, Ms. Connor? Okay, the meeting's adjourned then. Thanks for being here, everyone. Oh, and thank you again to ISU for hosting us and arranging all this. Very helpful. Thank you.